Well, hello and welcome to a special showcase for Creators Kit version 2.2. If you don't know what this plugin is, it's essentially a program for spawning, animating, and programming fake objects in the game. If you want to learn more though, this is not the right place. There's a full series of tutorials for version 2.0, which you should go check out. But to those who are familiar with the plugin, what we're going to do today is we're going to go through all the new features and all the things that have changed since the last update. So this will look relatively familiar to most of you. I have made a bunch of objects here, six objects. I've named them all. I currently have the overlay enabled so I can see their names. As is tradition, there is a selected object which you can change by clicking the objects panel on the side. Now, however, you can have multiple objects selected at once. To do so, you hold Control and you left-click the panel associated with that object. As you can see, all the selected objects are highlighted in orange, and the primary selected object, this is going to be a focal point for a lot of the stuff that we do, is still going to be highlighted in white. You can change which one is highlighted in which one is the primary selected character or object by just left-clicking or Control-click left-clicking the appropriate objects panel. So what can we do from there? Anything that used to be able to do to a single object, you can now do to multiple objects at once. For example, I'm going to make sure first off that we have our enable control hotkeys checked off. I'm going to move all these objects at the same time. So again, the primary object is this one in white, which is highlighted so on the screen here. And if I Control left click to relocate, it relocates all these selected objects oriented around where the primary object is, the barbarian. If I change which one is the primary one, say I use the craftsman as the focal point, now the tile that I click is going to place the craftsman and everyone else will be organized around him. Okay, pretty cool. So that's pretty useful in itself. Couple quick things. If you Control left click, you add that object to your selection. If you Control right click, you can remove that object from your selection. If you go Shift left click, you can highlight objects, you can select objects in a row or in a series. And if you right click, just basic right click, you can clear your selection entirely. Okay, so let's do some fun stuff with this. I'm going to just make sure the barbarian is the primary selected one for the purpose of this demo. I'm going to use the hotkey Control D to duplicate, but because we have six objects selected, we duplicate all six of them at the same time. Same thing for all the buttons on the side here. What you can do is normally you may affect one by, you delete one of these objects at a time or duplicate one. If you hold Control and left click the button, it'll change that feature for all of these objects. So I'm just going to hold Control and press Delete. That deletes all the selected ones. Gonna click that and Shift click to collect all of these. I'm going to Control click duplicate, and it should create a whole series of all the objects that I just had. Control delete, and we'll just grab all these with our Shift click once again. If I want to change them all to a different model, I can do so. If I want to change them all, sure, Drink Man, that's a great name for a model. I can do so there. I'm going to now spend an extraordinary amount of time to change that back because that's very inconvenient for this demonstration. Who's Jim? Oh, Jim is the Drink Man. Mortimer and Mr. Ignatius here. Okay. We can also do what we can also do is, just as before, if you Control click to relocate, you can also Control click and drag to point all the objects in a given direction, like so. Other things should be pretty obvious at this point. If you want to despawn them all, there you go. If you want to change all their animations, hold Control, and then we'll just enter 866 and press Enter. There we go. If we want to change their if you want to change their radius, again, hold Control and do so. If you want to change their rotation, there we go. And let's put them back to normal. Hold Control and change the animation to 808. Yeah, so all pretty handy stuff. If you are still in the prehistoric era and using hotkeys, you will be glad to know that the hotkeys still work, as you would expect. So by default, Home will relocate like so, End and Insert will rotate like so. Okay, next, very minor thing. If you want to recolor, there's now a couple pre-selected colors you can choose, or you can do random as previous, and the color is indicated by the object's name, and it is also shown above the object's head as a label if you have the page down overlays enabled. So this barbarian, if you want to change him to, let's say, blue, and we have to deselect him for the right color to show, there we go. How nice. Okay, so let's move on and yeah, let's move to this portion. We're going to open up our toolbox over here, and we are going to talk about a lot of the changes that have come here. And like so. See, I always recommend a dual monitor setup for using this plugin because this is unreal. Okay, here we go. Let's just resize these components a little bit. Okay, we can see all of our objects on the side here. We can see most of our keyframe types over here. Perfect. First off, if you want to rename, you can always right-click the object in the tree over here. You can also select all by clicking the folder and hitting select all. And if you have multiple folders that you want to select, I'm just going to duplicate with Control D, and then I'm going to take all these copies and put them in this folder. You can select all one folder and Control select all another folder. Look, all of them are now highlighted in orange or are primary in white. Let me get rid of these guys as they are going to be distractions. Okay, so probably one of the biggest changes to the timeline is the way that selection and manipulation of keyframes works. So I'm going to start off by making a really basic animation keyframe. We're just going to make this 866 for dance on the barbarian object. That's our friendly fellow right here. We're going to add a keyframe. And we're going to add another keyframe, and we're going to make that 808 add keyframe. So previously, whenever you changed the time by dragging the time indicator, it would always update to the last keyframe of that type. So, moving the indicator over here would show you the qualities of this keyframe. However, it is now changed where you actually have to click the keyframe to change it. This is very helpful because now you can click things over here and be able to see the 866 that we set for this keyframe. So now the stats on the side represent the keyframe that you click, which is highlighted in blue. If you have multiple keyframes clicked, they'll all be highlighted, except the blue one is giving me the one that shows up here. So this is our, well, let's just make it easy and hit update to update this keyframe. This is our 799, and this is our 866. Okay, what is 799? Oh, that's kind of perfect, isn't it? Well, that's beautiful. Okay. So let's say I want to add some, I want to modify this keyframe. I'm going to select it. Let's add some basic pose animations and hit update to update that keyframe. This one I'm also going to add some basic pose animations as well and hit update. Okay, let's look at our barbarian over here. He dances, and then at tick 2, he makes a strike with his spear. Perfect. Okay, so that is the most fundamental change to this page. But a very important change is that just like you can select multiple multiple objects and manipulate them at the same time, you can select them from here as well and add multiple keyframes at the same time. So for example, if I want them all to have a text keyframe saying gnomes are cool, and hit, oh, don't hit add keyframe, control click add keyframe, because that will add that keyframe to all of these objects. And just to help us out a little bit, I'm going to show in the summary for all of these what keyframes are available. I like using the text keyframes because it makes it very obvious what's actually happening. Let's change that to text and text. Okay, so as you can see, all these objects, I, in a one fell swoop, added a text keyframe to all of them. And if we move this to the side a little bit, you can see that when we select all of these objects, we actually see all their keyframes together, all on one page, and they're color-coded. So the blue one corresponds to the blue barbarian, who is, when not selected, highlighted in blue. Yeah, and if I were to, split all of these apart, you would eventually see all the keyframes unraveling. Right now, there's going to be 4 text keyframes, as you can see here, all under here. At some point, I will probably change this UI to make it a little more obvious how many keyframes you're selecting, or keyframes from who you're selecting. But for the time being, this is what we have, okay? So stop complaining. Anyways, so that's very convenient. Something else we can do, let's just go over here. So outside the range of these text keyframes and add a different text keyframe. I'm going to add it to just to the barbarian here. I'm going to say, hello, I am Barb. Add the keyframe just to him. As you can see, text keyframe shows up right up there in our summary. Let's say I want all of the objects here to have that text keyframe. I can Control-C to copy, as you could before. I'm going to select all of them and hit Control-V to paste. Now I'm given some options. I can paste to just Mortimer, or just Ignatius, or just the fisherman, or just Jim. And that should be pretty obvious what that does. I'll hit Jim over here. Jim now has a text keyframe at this tick. Tick 17.7. I'm going to delete that for now. Or I'm going to hit Control-V. I can paste to each. So that'll take the keyframe, hello, I am Barb, and it will give it to all of the selected objects. As you can see right here. And as you can see, they're saying right up here. All right, we're going to Control-Z to undo that. Now, a relatively unique one, I'm just going to remove all these old text keyframes just to make it abundantly clear what we're doing right now. Let's say I have 2, well, let's just do it. I'm going to make the craftsman say, hello, I am craft. And I'm going to make the fisherman say, hello, I am fish. Now, I'm going to take these 3 objects here. Now let's say I want them to say this again. They say it once, I want them to say it again at tick 15. I want the craftsman to say, hello, I am craft. I want the barbarian to say, hello, I am barb. I want the fisherman to say, hello, I am fish. If I were to copy the keyframe from the barbarian and paste it to everyone, they would all say, "Hello, I am Barb." Well, that's not really what I want them to do. I want them to say what they are. So what I can do is I can take these keyframes. Again, I have the 3 objects that I want to manipulate currently selected. You can see their text keyframes right here. I'm going to select all 3 of them underneath this one, and I'm going to hit Control-C to copy. And let's go to tick 15. I'm going to hit Control-V to paste, and I'm going to paste iteratively. English is hard. And look at that. It takes the text keyframe that belonged to the craftsman and gives it back to him. It took the keyframe that belonged to the barbarian and gave it back to him. And same with the fisherman. So that's what paste iteratively does. It takes the keyframe that used to belong to them and passes it to the same object. Okay, that is copying and pasting. The last thing we're going to cover is I'm just going to, I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to take the barbarian. I like his animation. We're going to reset the active animation, update that. We're going to copy this, select all of these objects, hit Control-V, and we're going to paste to each so they all have the same animations, because that'll make this look a lot cleaner. I'm going to Control left click to set the barbarian as my primary selected character. So when I move them around and when I hotkey them, it's going to rearrange them all around him, all around the tile that I click. Now, same thing as what you would assume. All the hotkeys that work for one object will work for all the selected objects. So if you are trying to create a movement path using the hotkeys like Control-A, you can do so. And if I hit Control-A again, it'll create a path that tries to align all of the objects to the same position as where they started relative to the selected one. So they all started around the selected, the primary barbarian, and when I created a path, they all figured out their way to end up beside him as well. So let's see that again, and once more without the overlay. Beautiful. Okay, this even applies smart pathing system. So if I move everybody over, let's say here, I'll Control-A to add a keyframe there, and I'm going to make them have to dodge around this tree. I'm going to hit Control-A over here. It calculates each of their paths individually, so all of them have to dodge around this yew tree. And as you can see, they figured out so that they tried their best to stay aligned with the barbarian. Pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie. Naturally being completely unbiased. Okay, let's delete these movement keyframes. I'm not gonna use them anymore. The last thing I should probably show you in regards to the 2.2 stuff is that you can also Control right click to export stuff as well. So if I go select barbarian, you can export the 3D model or export the animation for all of these selected objects as well. But I won't demonstrate that today. All right, so that is all the stuff from version 2.2. I'd just like to very quickly cover some of the stuff that changed through the long lifespan of version 1.1, which lasted for a very long time, or 2.1 I should say, which lasted for a very long time. First off, you can drag all of these different components to change the layout of the timeline. That's number one. The cache searcher and a bunch of other things have had a major overhaul where we can now preview 3D models over here. So if I look for Jim, Honest Jimmy, great guy, and I click him, he is now previewed in the side here. And I can do what I want. I can store and add him for use in the plugin, like so. Whoa, where did that go? Like so. And all the rest of the things you want to do here. You can enable or disable animations. You can also change the animation. So if I want him to dance, the party room dance, which is just, that's just normal. Okay, no, there's clapping, fair enough. Or if I want to get him back to his default animation, I just hit default animations. Okay, other things have had, yes, the other thing that we've had, you can also break down the model. Okay, you can stop that now. You can break down the model into its individual components for whatever reason you might want that. Let's say you just want to take his beautiful, beautiful waistcoat and send it to the anvil. Next thing, also over here, you can now search up sounds. So if I do baby dragon, when you click the sound, if your sounds are enabled in the actual RuneScape client, it will play the sound in your ear, and you can also hit export to download that sound file. Very convenient. Other things, this renderer is also available in the model anvil to preview the models that you're creating. So for example, this wizardly fellow, if I want to change his staff into sure, okay, yeah. Anyway, the preview is automatically updated. Very convenient. Model organizers also had an overhaul, so you can preview any models that you've stored, and you can manipulate them, get rid of them, send them to the anvil, save them for later, rename them, so on and so forth from here. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions, concerns, or issues. You'll be able to, you can just comment below, and I'm usually pretty good about answering. You can also join my Discord, which is usually where I'm more active. Yeah, let me know if you have any problems.